So we'll see where that goes. I wish it had gone somewhere in this season. Would have been nice. Hi, I'm Lazuli, and today I want to talk about The Bear Season 3. This is going to be a spoiler-filled, in-depth analysis and review of the season, so if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this yet. Definitely go watch the show first, because I'm going to be talking about literally everything.
I thought it was fun. I like the beat. So, yeah.
I would say, in a nutshell, this season is really about growing pains. And you really feel that in the characters and in the restaurant and in the show itself. In a lot of ways, the show is starting to mirror the trajectory of the restaurant. I don't know that I can exactly liken season 1 to Where the Beef stood, because it was an incredible piece of work, but I will say they definitely have made a transition in terms of popularity. All that to say, I think the show is struggling to keep up with the popularity and keep up the same quality of work that they're used to turning out, in the same way that the characters in the show in the restaurant, they're trying to reconcile their ambition with what they're realistically capable of pulling off. And I feel like the show and the writing being weaker in this season sort of reflects the way that the characters are struggling in that same way. You know, they've just made this leap from where they stood with the beef to this meticulous fine dining restaurant that they're aiming for, and they haven't seen some sort of like grand triumphant success just yet. There's not been a lot of progress. We really are only seeing their day-to-day lives and them just kind of trying to keep their heads afloat. I could understand people being annoyed that there was not very much progression, but I also don't think they intended for there to be. I think they were very careful about constructing it and framing it as this is them transitioning. This is definitely like a very developmental time, and they're really working it out. They don't have it together yet. We're not going to see very much. And also, you also have to consider that I believe the season takes place over the course of 2 months, give or take. So they haven't had a lot of time to progress. They really are just like trying to figure out like, what are we even doing? What do we want this to look like? So it makes sense that they would be wrapped up in that and not make too much progress. And I think the same can be said for a lot of the characters. A lot of them have been a little stagnant, I would say. Some of them end this season in the same place that they ended last season. There's not too much development and growth for some people, and I honestly think that works for certain characters more than others. For some characters, it makes sense that they haven't made progress in the ways that you would have hoped in the 2-month period. We'll get into that. I wonder how much of this sort of feeling of incompleteness is because it is basically designed to be a first half. I mean, they did the to be continued at the end of the season, which I don't believe they've done for other seasons. So even though we know, like in general, a season is just one part of a story of a show, I feel like more than ever these two are supposed to be connected, and they're like two halves of a whole. I could see the sentiment being they saved a little too much for next season when they could have like given us a little bit more now. And to be honest, I think if I didn't already know that season 4 was like basically done, or at least written and completed, and that story is solidified, if I didn't already have that in mind going into this, I probably would have been more frustrated as a viewer. I think knowing that, I was a little bit more comfortable with the fact that we were in this sort of limbo state, because I had in the back of my mind that it was going to be a transitionary period as opposed to a more succinct and complete story. I'm still not sure how to feel about that. Okay, and literally as I'm sitting here, I just saw an article that says they didn't, in fact, film season 4 right after season 3 because it didn't end up working out. Scripts didn't pan out, and they're like being a little cryptic about how much they did manage to film. They said they got a little bit, so I don't really know what that means, but that does kind of like change things for me. I feel like the only reason I was okay with the lack of progression that we saw was because I was like, oh well, not that we're getting season 4 anytime soon, but at least they have an idea and they know what's gonna happen, so it makes sense that this would be the first half. And now I find out that they don't even know. I'm sure they still have an idea, but I'm like, dang, the only reason this was working for me is because I know it's like half of the story and they have a vision for what the second half is, and the second half isn't even actually done.
Honestly, I only have myself to blame for going with the word of relatively unreliable news sources, and also just straight up not paying attention to what the article says. That's on me. That's my fault for getting my expectations up. Regardless, I won't really hold it against the show. I think it's remarkable in this sort of new climate in television production where shows are taking like 2 to 3 years to put out like 8-episode seasons. I think The Bear has been pretty consistent getting something out for the last few years in like a decent amount of time, so I won't hold it against them, even if I was upset. But yeah, this is your lesson, kids. Click the article, read it. Don't just go off the tweet because that's really stupid.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
There were a lot of long conversation scenes, which I liked and I didn't as a stylistic choice. For the most part, I enjoyed those moments with the characters. I do appreciate it in the sense that it feels very grounded and it gives a little bit of a moment with the characters to get some insight into their thought process and their values. But I could also see how for some viewers you'd be like, well, what did that add to the show? I thought those scenes at Ever were really sweet. Like I enjoyed it for what it was, but in the context of like the whole show, that was where I was like kind of tired of it. I felt like they were really natural actors, and I was even speculating, are these like actual, am I just like missing cameos here? And I think they are actual chefs, and a lot of it felt very much like genuine interview questions that they were just having them talk about their history and then tweaking certain things so that Aya was still answering and like responding in character as Sydney.
Has anybody ever left on the pre-order option? Don't say no like that. I'm still sharing stories, I just wondered.
And so was Will as Luca, like answering back in character. But the chefs, the way they were talking, like some of these maybe like real stories, they feel genuine, they feel authentic to these chefs' lives, which I thought was really well done, and I really liked it and I enjoyed it. And then at the same time, it was like, you guys, it's the last episode, like, can we do something else? Can we please? I enjoy this, but like, we have other things to do. Can we get a little bit of progress? And then at a certain point, I was like, oh, we're just not gonna get any progress. Okay, all right, I get it. I want to talk about each character now and kind of a little bit of their journey. Hopefully I don't miss anybody.
You have a history of mental illness, yes.
This concerns me on a lot of levels.
As for Carmen, he starts off really sort of ashamed of the mistake that he made, ashamed that he really let everybody down on like the first day of their big day, which really was kind of an omen and set the tone maybe for how things were gonna go going forward. And so he does his very Carmen thing, as he is wont to do. He overcorrects majorly.
Okay, Richie, think about it this way, okay? These are goals.
No, because they're not goals, okay? They are musts. They are non-negotiables. If we want to get a star, this is what we're going to do. You two can keep talking shit, but this is what we have to do, okay? They're non-negotiables. They're not to be negotiated.
I know what they are.
In season 2, we saw him a bit checked out and kind of half-assing his commitment to the restaurant and to his partnership with Sydney in forging this business together. He was kind of a really shitty partner to her, and he was, I don't want to say head in the clouds, because he was also struggling, you know, trying to pick himself up, and like finally he decided to try and maybe kind of sort of start working on processing his grief, and so he made some strides in that way, but it stunted his progress with the restaurant. And then having, you know, following that huge mistake and the shame that came with him making that mistake, I think he has overcorrected and he became really hyper fixated on, okay, the way to fix this is to block out everything. As he said when he was, you know, blowing up at Claire unknowingly, he was like, I can't do any distractions, because he doesn't at this moment have the tools to focus on more than one thing in his life, which I think is really unfortunate. And we see a lot of like Carmy's thought process, and we see a lot more of his background and like why he is the way he is, why he operates the way that he does, why he goes to these extremes, because that was instilled in him. We really only see him confront that and like come to any sort of realization in the last episode, where he confronts his old head chef, where he's like, hey, like, you fucked me up. What was that about?
You gave me ulcers and panic attacks and nightmares.
I gave you confidence and leadership and ability. It fucking worked. It worked. You're here. Look at all this.
Clearly you're better for it. So what are you even complaining about? There's a lot of flashes in that scene too. His relationship with the people at the restaurant, and how he's been treating them and how he's been talking to them in the pursuit of bettering the restaurant.
Hooks off. Refire.
That's a fucking asshole, right? I'm getting fucked.
If it's not perfect, it doesn't go out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Where we can kind of see him just barely start piecing together that, okay, maybe I'm the drama.
This needs to get good or go away.
This needs to get good or go away.
You redid everything.
Sid?
That could have come sooner. At the very least, like, maybe even in episode 9, I would have been happy with that coming sooner. Like, if he had just had that realization and we see him like, I need to get better. I need to fix this. But I would have liked for him to snap out of it and wise up a little earlier, so we can see him at least start to turn to maybe make that progress and reconcile with the people around him. I was kind of disappointed with his storyline. I felt like, especially with Claire, we just didn't really get around to. Let's talk about Claire.
Oh. All right.
She has like one of those long conversations with him, and I don't really know what to make of that. The story about the girl not even being able to really process that she's in pain. I think she's speaking to Carmy's state there, where he's been put through the ringer and he hasn't really taken the appropriate amount of time to sit and process that.
Did it hurt so much that it didn't hurt at all?
His default mode is ignore it, power through. So I wonder if that's what that was saying. I liked the conversation with the person at the NA meetings, that whole spiel about not being able to say I'm sorry and getting kind of caught up in that, the words being stuck in your throat and you just kind of can't say that.
I'm so sorry.
We made it.
No, you made it. And I love you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think it says a lot that the facts were the ones that had to go and set this up on his behalf.
You know Carm's all in, right? He likes you more than he likes himself.
I mean, that's actively not true, and that I have not heard from him.
It still is outside sources trying to patch this thing up for them and to make it work for them. And Carmy still is like unable to bring himself to make it work. Will he apologize? Hopefully at some point. I think he'll get there. But also, like, I don't know what we're doing with Claire. If you had asked me last season, I would have been like, okay, this is clearly not going to work. He's going to drag his feet and eventually apologize. And maybe they'll even try and get into a relationship again and it won't work. Or maybe it will for a little while. And then it'll be done. And they'll end relatively amicably. That's what I would have said. And now having seen season 3, I'm like, okay, so we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything with Claire. That's one of the ones where I'm like, okay, that's a little frustrating. I feel like that there was no reason for that to take as long as it did. Do you feel like in general with him and Claire, he has sort of been kind of trying to force this idea of like what it's meant to be, what it is, like this picture perfect thing, and he keeps saying she's the piece. I don't know that that's true. I don't think I've seen that for him.
You're the piece.
No.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, you are the piece.
No.
Clipper. You're the piece.
And I'm sitting there like going, what?
She's not the problem. It's not her fault. She didn't do anything. She's a great girl. He's the one that's like fucking things up. But I also don't think they're like particularly good for one another. I don't think there's very much chemistry there. I want them to reconcile. I really do want him to apologize because she deserves that much. He did have a quick moment where he's like, dang, maybe she is haunting me, where he's like kind of like trying to snap himself out of his self-sabotage a little bit. Like when he goes back into the walk-in and he's like hovering over Claire's phone number and he's like processing, that moment was really interesting to me. And the fact that, like, if you listen to the music that was playing, they were playing both the music that was going on when he was in the walk-in and he was screaming at Claire.
It's just a complete waste of fucking time.
I'm really sorry you feel that way, Carm.
When he lost her, basically, and the same music that was playing when he was calmed down from his panic attack when he thought of Sydney.
Hi, hello. You're the most excellent CDC at the most excellent restaurant in the entire United States of America.
And in that very moment, he's thinking about reconciling with Claire, and he's basically very close to losing Sydney. He doesn't even know that, but that is what it is. So I thought that was really interesting, and like the fact that they're overlaying and sort of drowning each other out. I feel like he's really at a crossroad, or will eventually be at a crossroads. We haven't made very much progress, but I did think that was interesting, where he's like clearly conflicted. Claire and Sydney do not coexist peacefully inside his brain. So we'll see where that goes. I wish it had gone somewhere in this season. Would have been nice. Let's talk about Sydney. Sydney's my favorite. Shocker, I know. For as much as like the overall sort of failing of the season could be suggested, that it's like, you know, the lack of progress and like how stagnant it feels and how some of the characters feel like they ended up at square one, like where they started. I feel like Sydney is one of the characters where her narrative this season, being as stagnant as it is, actually makes sense. We saw the setup last season. There was a lot of groundwork laid to show how she's feeling. Her, you know, only getting half of Carmen's effort in what's supposed to be a group project for them. She got that warning from the chef at Kasama, just be careful, make sure you do this with a partner you trust. And a lot of like foreshadowing about, can you really rely on Carmen? And I think she had a lot of fear around that going into the season, and he didn't ease her worries at any point. So it makes sense that she is kind of in the same place that she is. And she also did make progress outside of that. She patched things up with Marcus, which was nice to see.
Really sorry. I made things weird, and I'm sorry about that.
And for those of you complaining about a lack of platonic relationship in the show, there you go. She got a new apartment.
It's small, it's expensive, and it's a longer ride to work.
Okay, well, you're being pretty negative.
I do think it's symbolic that Sydney has settled on this kind of shitty apartment in an effort to establish her independence, and she's willing to accept negatives like the longer commute to work. That's one of the things that her dad mentions. And I wonder if that's representative of what she's going through with the bear. The fact that as she is physically distancing herself from the bear, she is simultaneously making a huge stride in establishing her own independence. Is that maybe foreshadowing for what she will eventually have to do, like distance herself from the bear, if it means she gets to be independent and she gets to have a stronger voice? There's even further parallels there in the fact that she is trying to go out on her own, because as much as she loves her dad, it's kind of uncomfortable living with him at the moment. You know, she just kind of needs her space to be able to live freely and live comfortably. And I think that is parallel to her workspace at the Bear now, where as much as she wants it to be this free-form place where she can inject as much of her ideas as possible and collaborate in a really fun way, there's not a lot of wiggle room there at the moment because Carmen is not really making it a space that she can be comfortable in and collaborate comfortably in. She feels a bit suffocated there. So in the same way that she's branching out from her dad's apartment and like moving into her own place, she could potentially move out of the Bear and go with Shapiro's new thing where she would be able to really be in charge and be running things and directing things. But, you know, she moved out of her dad's place into a rather shitty apartment, and we don't know yet whether or not that was the best decision. So I guess we'll have to see whether her going with Shapiro would be just as shitty as the apartment that she's escaping to. With this new opportunity that's been presented to her, Shapiro, who's like he's trying to poach her for his new thing that he's starting, she really is like conflicted with whether or not she should do that because she wants to see this thing through at the Bear because she's put her heart and her soul into it, and it could be hers if she would sign the agreement, but also is it wise to sign the agreement because I don't know that I can rely on this partner. It makes sense for her being as conflicted as she is for her to not have moved forward. And that scene with her and Luca where, you know, he's like, outside of your dad, do you have a best friend like that? Somebody who clicks for you? And then they immediately got cut off, and how fitting that that conversation is interrupted by Shapiro again trying to snatch her away. You could see him getting frustrated in that scene because she kind of just like will not give him an answer as far as like, are you gonna come with me or are you gonna not? Either way, like I understand, but just like give me something. She does not know how to tell him yes or no. I haven't decided. Poor Sydney. I will also say I don't think going with Shapiro would be a good choice for Sydney. I don't blame her for feeling the way she's feeling right now, but I don't think he would make a great choice either. Just a red flag that I saw. It was like, I wouldn't want this to feel like a poaching thing. Obviously, I would want to have a conversation with Carmy.
I don't want this to be, you know, some sort of gross poaching. I'd want to talk to Carmy, but first I wanted to see if this is something you would even remotely consider.
And I thought that was so weird. And it felt very much as like a parallel to the conversation that Richie had with Frank, where Frank was basically like, oh, like, should I have asked permission? And Richie's sitting there like, why the fuck would you ask her ex-husband for permission to marry her? And this, just a quick comment, a very quick comment from Chef Shapiro, but it felt very similar where he's like, oh, it's not a poaching thing, I would want to talk to Carmy. And I'm like, I get, like, you guys knew each other, but what are you, like, asking, hey, just so you know, I'm stealing your partner? I think he knows he's being slimy by poaching her, and it maybe takes away her agency a little bit to be like, oh yeah, don't worry, like, I would definitely talk to Carmy. I'm like, talk to Carmy for what? This is a decision for her to make for herself or not. It's like a signal, and that he maybe is not, like, a great choice either. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, I want better for her. In my wildest dreams, it would have been great and she'd be happy and everything would be wonderful and rainbows, but I understand where she's at, and I think her arc so far makes sense. My heart broke for her with that panic attack, so I really feel for her. We see a lot of parallels there with Sydney and Carmen in their stages of their career. When Carmy was at this point, he was being abused by that chef who was treating him like shit, and now she's in this position with Carmy where he's going really hard on them in a way that's not as helpful as he thinks it is, and it's giving her anxiety. We saw that panic attack at the end of season 2, and what do you know, we end off with her in the same exact place. It makes sense that she would be stuck in that cycle because she has a lot of love for Carmen.
He's look different.
Oh yeah, I made the margins wider.
Why?
Because you write in the margins.
And she's in his family now. The Bear and everybody there is her family. She's kind of entrenched in it. So I think she is just like, what do I do? I love this place. I love these people. I don't want to leave, but also, is this good for me anymore? It makes sense that she has landed where she's landed, and I'm not mad at that. I am mad at him, and I'm really sad for her. but I'm not mad at the story. The through line of her not signing the partnership agreement, that was something I was really worried about last season. She doesn't have anything tangible to hold on to and solidify her stake in this place. And then the offer went up to her, and because she can't really trust him yet, she can't rely on him anymore at this point, she doesn't want to sign it.
They're thin.
They're fine.
No, I don't know what's flimsier, these walls or the partnership promises.
Do you want me to kill you? I could kill you.
It's thin.
What I also thought was interesting, I noticed that Cicero pushed her and Sugar pushed her. They both nudged her to be like, hey, you know, sign the agreement. And I think maybe Carmy did once, but he's the one that's most willing to kind of just let that lie where it is. And I think maybe he is just distracted and isn't thinking about it. But I do think it's interesting that he's kind of the only one that's like letting that be up in the air.
I can wait.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm tired. We're both tired.
Yeah, I'm right here.
It's fine.
He has no idea how close he is to losing her as a business partner.
That's what I want to see. That, not that other man.
I would say it also shows how much he's taken her for granted, because it really doesn't ever occur to him that her being uncertain is a possibility. In his mind, he's already fixing the issue. Him working so hard in the restaurant and committing is him fixing the problem, and that's him patching up any issue that would have made her doubt him. So he thinks he's actively making up for it, but he's really missing the forest for the trees here.
He has no idea. He doesn't know about the other opportunity, but beyond that, like even if there wasn't another opportunity, he is just not registering. You know, Sydney's doing her best to advocate for herself and try and stand up for herself and assert her side of things. She checks him when he's getting out of control.
They're going too fucking slow.
I am not asking. You need to calm down. I'm not your fucking babysitter.
Chef.
Great, thank you.
And she tries her best, it seems, to make her voice heard and like, hey, I want to be here too.
Your cook was excellent, by the way.
Thank you for saying that. But you still changed all my shit.
It's our shit, and it's just some adjusting.
And he just kind of is not registering her. And I don't think that that is malicious. Carmen's not the kind of person for that to be malicious. I don't think he's just like, oh, I don't give a fuck about Sydney. But he isn't showing a lot of regard or consideration for her. He didn't last season, and he's kind of still not. He thinks he is. The difference is the motivation is a little more clear. He let her down by getting stuck in the walk-in on their big day. I'm not gonna fuck up again. I'm gonna do right by you.
I left you alone.
So don't let it happen again.
It's never gonna happen again.
He thinks he's doing right by her. She asked for a star, he's gonna get her one. This is what it takes to get there.
We're gonna get a star. What?
I thought that was a trap.
I thought we were gonna be dialed.
Okay.
But he's losing sight of her as a person, as an individual, in the pursuit of bettering the restaurant. They said something about, oh, it's about nurturing people. The restaurant business is about nurturing. And I'm like, baby, Carmen, what exactly have you nurtured? His sketchbook? Can we say he nurtures the menu if it changes every day? I don't know. He's certainly not nurturing his personal relationships.
He's definitely trying, and he thinks he is nurturing their relationship because for him, it's so intertwined with the restaurant itself.
I don't want it to be so hard to keep up with me.
Okay.
He's trying his best for her sake. He's even thinking about her clearly subconsciously, but you know, he's really missing the point. God bless him.
Carmen is kind of falling into poorer habits that he's seen displayed. Sydney as a leader is being more compassionate. Maybe it's because she's greener, but she knows and can see at least and is learning in real time from Carmen's mistakes.
T, how we doing? Chef!
Almost, chef, almost.
Fuck this. I'm gonna go over there.
Fire, 2 halibut.
Breathe. You're fine.
Table 2, waiting on
Don't
scallop.
think.
Table 2,
Just
please.
listen. We're going to refire, okay?
She kind of knows how to do the opposite, and she's very assertive, like firm, but gentle, if that makes sense. she can get her point across more succinctly without having it be a big, you know, blow up conversation. And she got a little frustrated, but she never lashed out. They're sort of like really deeply intertwined with one another and just like connected. Like that feels like some soulmate shit. I'm so sorry. I'm not saying you have to ship anything. I'm not trying to convert anybody, but the fact that he spent so much time verbally abused about this and being, you know, forced to make this dish a certain way. The one time he finally is like, I'm gonna do this just for me. I just need one good win. Nobody has to know. I'm gonna make the dish how I fucking want to make it and how I intend it, how I envisioned it. And the one time that he does it, it's given to Sydney, and that's the dish that really, you know, solidified her admiration for him and brought her a lot of inspiration and made her want to work with him. How fucking kismet is that? That was so beautiful. I still don't think she told Carmy. Did she tell Carmy that? I don't think she did. But it was sort of the impetus of their relationship, whether he knows it or not. When Chef Terry is closing down her restaurant and they're doing a funeral forever, Carmen's like, okay, so you're coming with me, right? He was so immediately like, of course. Why wouldn't you be there? I love that. It felt very much like, you know, what's mine is yours. Like, why the fuck wouldn't you be there?
I don't really think that's like my place to be there.
It's ever.
Yeah, I know.
So what are you talking about? You should come.
Okay.
And I just thought, you know, how crazy it must feel for her to be there as a peer now, how she's worked her way up in that way. When they're at the dinner table too, when she's hearing from all these chefs and she's just really trying to process, like, you know, maybe I'm earlier on in my career than some of them, but I'm at the same table. And then Carmen really kind of getting lost in that moment, being stuck on the head chef that was really fucking awful to him. He got really sucked into that and like distracted and wasn't even able to enjoy the moment.
Oh, that's no. In the sense that, no. You know what I mean?
Remember when I said there were some times in the long conversation scenes worked for me and sometimes they didn't? The facts?
Ted, yeah, well, why? Yeah, no, well, Ted, me, yeah, well, no, well, I did, no, you didn't, yeah, I did, absolutely not, might have, you could never, did you? I never thought of it.
It was too much. It was simply too much. You know, the characters feel the same way. The facts are like way better in smaller doses.
No, not now. No.
Okay. Oh, well.
So I don't know why we went so extreme in this opposite direction. I say that with love because I do think they're fantastic actors. I didn't need this much more. And with those conversation scenes, I was like, I for sure did not need 6 minutes of this. I really, really didn't. Also, okay, I don't know why I'm talking around John Cena being there. I don't know if you noticed him. I can't even make a you can't see me joke because he was there for fucking 25 minutes. I don't know what his actual runtime was, but I screamed when he showed up, by the way. I screamed, but I thought that would just be like a fun little cameo. Even up to like the point where he goes and sees Sydney in the kitchen, I'm like, that's still funny. But when it comes to the conversations of like with the haunting, I'm like, that's a fun bit, but my God, did we need to sit in it for this long? I think we could have got the jokes off and then moved on. I definitely did not need a whole spiel from them. That was too much. That was kind of like one of the only times that didn't really work for me. I just was like kind of over it.
I love you both so much. I fucking love you both.
I know.
You have to leave.
Look at the screen.
That's mine.
And that's what you're going to settle for.
I'm gonna stick beside him.
Richie, I think, is doing pretty well. He's another character where I think I'm happy with his trajectory. I'm happy with his arc this season. Last season, we saw him really struggling with purpose, and he found a big upswing at the end there where he's like, I really feel good about this. This is work that I find value in, that I find peace in, that I find drive in. And that continued into this season, unfortunately, because the group chemistry, mostly because of Carmen, but because the group chemistry is so off, he's not being able to continue making the same strides that he was, but he's definitely still committed. He still is doing the work. He still feels very passionate about making a good customer experience. His relationship with Eva is so sweet. I like that he and Sydney are cool. Seems cool with everyone else at the restaurant. He and Carmy have not managed to work it out, which is really upsetting. And Carmen apologizes and Richie was like, whatever. And they just have had this really nasty combative, like more so than usual. Before it felt very petty, kind of lighthearted argument, and now it's like, if you come over here, I'm gonna fucking hit you. Like, he spit at him at one point, which was kind of insane.
I felt the need to tug on her wig. I did not try to pull it off. I did not want to pull it off. I just wanted to shift it a little bit.
Like, that is out of control.
And I don't mean to excuse Richie's part in the conflict, because his refusal to forgive Carmen is resulting in him being very unprofessional and petty at times, and it definitely adds to the volatile environment in the kitchen. Like, for as much as he's making progress, him choosing to be so unforgiving, and not even that he has to forgive Carmen, but at least, like, you know, maintain your composure. It's definitely adding to the problem of like the group chemistry not working. I don't mean to excuse him in that. And he's also being a little bit unfair to Sydney by being immature and putting her in the middle of it and making her the go-between for his and Carmy's issues. It's a little ridiculous, honestly.
There is this through line of Richie being alone. Tiffany describes him as alone at one point and like kind of like said, Tiffany kind of says a little too much in front of Eva sometimes. She basically let it slip that she thinks he's kind of alone or lonely, and she apologizes for that, so I won't hold it against her. But then he starts to examine, like, am I alone? Like, do I feel alone? I think if the group was doing better, if the team was doing better, I don't think he would feel that way. And when he has that conversation with, I believe her name is Jess, who like did Expo at the other restaurant, who he really learned a lot from last season, he has that conversation with her of how do you stay pumped, how do you stay motivated, and I think that kind of clicked for him. I do love the people I'm around, but we're not doing good right now, and maybe that's why I'm not doing good, and I want to be doing good. So we'll see how that goes. I like him and Jess. I like the idea of them together. I think they definitely will explore that next season.
Don't be a stranger, Richie.
I think she would make a good love interest. They seem well suited and compatible personality-wise. I like those two together. Him and Tiffany, I like that they're in a good place. She has this really beautiful conversation with him about, I really want you to be at the wedding. You know, I know it might be weird for you, but I would really like you to be there.
You know, I don't have a lot of family left. You're kind of like it for me.
It kind of was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna do it for you. I'm gonna do it for Eva. And I thought that was beautiful. And hope maybe he'll bring Jess as a +1. I could see that. Can we talk about Frank? Frank is weird. Frank is really weird. I was really weirded out by that conversation that he had with Richie. I didn't know what to make of that. I thought, I couldn't really find it genuine because the way he was going about bringing the subject up felt very stilted.
This could be a little weird, and I don't want to add to the weirdness.
Having the conversation that Richie and Tiffany had in mind, if she had shared that sentiment with Frank at some point, then I could understand his thought process a little better. Maybe he was just like, this is family to my fiance. They share a daughter. I'm gonna be a step parent to his kid. I wouldn't ever want to step on your toes. Like, I hope things are comfortable between us. If it had been that, I could see that. But he didn't say it like that. He said it fucking weird.
You look good, by the way. Thanks.
Maybe I'm overreacting. You let me know if I'm overreacting. But that was really weird.
That's real. Even though she's fictional, it's real. And that's important to me.
So we did get an episode solely focused on Tina this season, which I really loved. It was actually directed by Io, which was very exciting. It was great. It was a great episode. It was really solid. It follows her life just before she gets to working at the Bear. She's really down on her luck. Her rent was just raised, and her husband, his job isn't great, and he's not getting the promotion that he's hoping for, and then she gets laid off. She goes in to different businesses every single day to leave her resume and try and get a job. She goes to the Beef and she meets Richie first, and she just sees the environment, and you can kind of see her eyes just light up. This feels like something. This is like magnetic, this place. Richie's really sweet to her, and he gives her coffee and a sandwich on the house, and then she goes and sits down and she starts crying. And then Mikey has this conversation with her that was really beautiful about their struggle, their dreams, and how they didn't really have solid dreams. They kind of just fell into wherever they fell into, and how they don't necessarily need more than that. You know, like some people have purpose immediately and know what that is, and some people kind of don't and don't necessarily ever come around to that.
I don't need to be inspired. I don't need to be impassioned. I don't need to make magic. I don't need to save the world, you know? I just want to feed my kid, you know?
Amen. It was a conversation about like being okay with that and still carving out a place for yourself, even when you didn't necessarily run straight for that and know what that was going to be right away. And I thought that was really beautiful. It was a beautiful episode, and Tina was definitely struggling with keeping up with Carmy's constant bullshit. I really liked that Sydney took a lot of time to be really patient with her and kind of just like reassure her of her own confidence. You're absolutely capable of doing this. Trust yourself.
And right the first time.
Thank you, Chef.
I mean, she had a little bit of a breakthrough at the end there with that dish that she was working on with Marcus. I would have liked a more definitive, not conclusions, so to speak, but just come back to it and show that she's really made progress there. But I guess, you know, maybe we got enough of that. That's fine.
Take care of yourself. Keep that smile on your face to let the world know you're strong.
Marcus went through a lot. Everybody went through a lot. Everybody's been through the ringer on this show. It's like really fucked up and awful. But he, you know, ended last season with that awful phone call about his mom, and like we kind of knew. And sure enough, you know, this season we do see her funeral. And Marcus is one of the ones I'm concerned for. I think he's maybe following in Carmen's footsteps in the wrong way here, where he's not exactly processing his grief. He seems to kind of just be powering through, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
Nobody has to say anything. I just want to work. Just want to be here with y'all and not think about it for a second, cool?
They do have a conversation at one point.
You know, instead of not dealing with it, try to,
Is that what you did?
No.
Marcus brings up, what would you want your legacy to be? Like, what would bring you peace? Carmen says something to the effect of, like, I want everything squared away. And he's like, I want to get over my shit, get over my baggage, and have that be done. And then I could be happy. And I think, hopefully, that was like a seed for Marcus to be like, okay, maybe I should, you know, work on that. And I don't think he's necessarily bearing it, but I am concerned that it will turn into that. He's doing okay. He's doing about as okay as he can be. I like that he apologized to Sydney for screaming at her. We both knew it was awkward. I like that they reconciled and that they're like back to friends. So that's really sweet. What else about Marcus? I don't know. That was also another loose end where I was like, okay, we could have done something with that, like the Violet thing. I felt like we just didn't really ever put a point on that. We didn't ever come back to it and be like, oh yeah, he figured out his dish and what he wanted it to look like. He just kind of said that and like started that thread, and then like we didn't do anything with it. We saw him like kind of in the background here and there working on it, and then again when he was collaborating with Tina, we saw like a little glimpse of maybe what it's gonna be. I really like that Sugar stood up for him when the computer was like, he is maybe too expensive, and Sugar was like, he's not going anywhere, so figure it out. Rebalance the book. I like that. That was really sweet.
She's actually a saint. She's a perfect person, and she's never done anything wrong in her entire life.
Let's talk about Sugar. Poor Natalie. Natalie's really been holding things down for them, and she's been working really hard. She had a few conversations with Richie and other people where she's really worried about being a new mother with her family's history. She's worried about emulating certain bad behaviors, and she has this wonderful moment when she goes into labor and everybody's phones are off, and the only person, which by the way, the fact that she called Sydney before she called Carmy, that just warms my heart. They're literally sisters. That's so cute. but she calls her mom. She's been avoiding calling her mom the whole season, and then in the final moments when she kind of just needed somebody to be there, she calls Donna. And it's definitely not an easy process, but it was really beautifully done. That entire episode was essentially like a long conversation. Can't even imagine how many pages of fucking dialogue they had to memorize. Them sort of patching up and repairing a broken mother-daughter relationship, and you can tell that they both really, really want it to work, and they want it to be good and healthy, and that they have their own reservations about what their dynamic has been like in the past that have been preventing them from making it work, and it's been making them avoid each other. But now Anna's here when Sugar really needs it, and she's a little annoying.
No, it's not. It is. It's calming you down. It's not calming me down. You see me. I'm not calm. You are calm. No. Stop.
But she's trying really hard, and she actually is kind of helpful too. And they really repair a lot of the harm and like the damage. I mean, that was the most significant moment it could have happened in, and they like really did a lot of good work to fix their relationship. I thought that was really beautiful. And Pete made it. I was so worried Pete wouldn't make it. Pete's such a sweetheart. I love Pete. We didn't see anybody react to Sugar's baby. She sent a text to Donna, I think. That was a nice little button for that arc in that episode. I mean, we saw Sydney go over. It was a really sweet gesture, but like we didn't see like Tina getting to react to that. We didn't see Marcus being supportive.
It's quiet. Yeah, no, it's quiet for him.
I wish there was more for Ibra. I really appreciated that they got him some support, and I just like seeing him happy. He seems so sweet. He's like a sweet, kind soul.
I worked in hospital once.
Really?
Many people died.
I want him to be happy and supported. It's nice to see Chi-Chi and I forget the other guy's name, but I like them, and I like putting in the groundwork to make sure we're still supporting the beef and our roots and where we came from. You know what I mean?
I nearly forgot about poor Sweeps, who's getting like the honorable mention of all honorable mentions, because I completely forgot to say anything in the video. But don't be mad at me, because the show also forgot about him.
I'm going to wine school at the quartermaster.
I come too?
No.
He said that he was going to wine school, and then we never heard about that ever again.
Wait a minute. Is this a scratch and sniff book, bro?
I mean, we did get to hear a bit about his past and, you know, a little bit of his backstory, so that's nice. I still need more, I think. Some of the 7 minutes that John Cena was on screen could have gone to a flash to wine school. Maybe we could see that next season. I don't know. Poor Sweeps.
I've been robbed.
I do feel like there was maybe a little bit left on the table because they're in such disarray with the restaurant. We lost a lot of that closeness that really makes the show. We loved to see them and their dynamics, and we see that in bits and pieces with different characters in pairs, in smaller doses, kind of working together and maintaining their family dynamic. Now that I think about it, we didn't see not one family meal this season or family gathering because they're so at odds with Carmy's vision. He's kind of scrambled them, and they're in disarray in that way, especially when you contrast it with in Tina's episode when she first comes into the beef and she's seeing it as lively as it is, and she sees how they cooperate with one another, and that compared to how they're operating now, they're kind of just barely getting by and tolerating one another. They're not as strong as a collective anymore, which is really like a huge chunk of the show, is how much we love to see them as a family. And that's one of the reasons it kind of doesn't land, because that's the heart of the show. I think this was a half of story, so I imagine a lot of what we set up here will be reconciled. Tina's going to continue to develop. She's doing well. She's staying the course. I really hope there's nothing too shitty in store for Marcus. He should be okay. Richie, I'm really optimistic about. I feel like he's in a good place, and once the restaurant evens out, if it does, once the restaurant like finds its footing, I think he'll be okay, because he's done a lot of introspection. He's really done like a lot of work on himself. I don't think Sydney will end up taking the opportunity with Shapiro. Don't think he would be a better route to go. Maybe if the pair gets shut down, she'll try and hop on that ship. I don't think he's going to be much better, to be honest with you. Sydney just needs a win. She needs Carmen to stop fucking things up. She's tried a little bit, but I think she could try again. She really needs to just be brave and have that conversation. This needs to stop or I'm out. I've been telling you this isn't really working and you're kind of not really hearing me. It needs to stop and get better or I'm done. She needs to have that conversation and just decide what she wants to do for herself, because she's put a lot of work into The Bear and I wouldn't want her to walk away from it. I think maybe Claire and Carmy will figure it out. He'll apologize to her. I don't know that they'll get back into a relationship. She's maybe over it at this point. If she allowed him to, I think he would fall back into that because that's comfortable, except when it isn't. That ship has passed. I think he can still apologize and he should, but I don't think she would take him back at this point. Carmy, I think, has been set up to do better at this point and to grow, because he's finally had this realization that he's falling into bad patterns that he was subjected to. So he's finally had that realization, and I think he will hopefully come around, hopefully quicker next time. Hopefully we don't spend an entire season dragging it out next time. Sugar's gonna be fine. She's raising her baby, but I imagine she'll still be popping her head in here and there. Donna maybe will become a bigger part of things. So yeah, I think that's what I see for everybody.
What? What did you say?
And then of course there's the looming threat of being shut down, which I was really worried about, and I don't know if this show is the kind of show that's gonna pull out a like last minute, we managed to save the ski lodge, we managed to save the theater department. I don't know if they're gonna do that. I think they might just fucking shut the restaurant down. Hopefully the relationships will be repaired before then, or in the process of the restaurant being shut down. So Cicero basically is like, he's trying to give them some grace. He's been very gracious to Carmy, who has been running up the fucking credit card.
We cannot fucking keep this up.
It's Orwellian.
It's dystopian butter?
It's the best.
Oh yeah, suck me.
It's not even so much that he's at his limit as far as like patience is gone. I think he just straight up is at his limit, like at his fucking credit limit. Like
So where's the fucking money?
He does not have any more to give, and in fact has already given too much, and like we're fucked.
The market ripped and I'm fucked. You give him a deadline, you apologize, you tell him you love him, you'll make it up to him down the road. But this is this. It is what it is.
That's where we kind of leave. And that's, it should be interesting.
How could it possibly be all good?
It just seems a little impossible for it to be like all good.
Yeah, impossible that it's all good.
Can't complain. Actually, I can.
As it stands, I don't think there is a good justification for season 3 and 4 being separate. I think this is an incomplete story in a way that's like not satisfying enough to justify it being a half. It looked beautiful, it was well edited and well acted, but there just wasn't a whole lot going on. And I think in comparison to the first 2 seasons, this one is pretty weak. Not to say that fan service is necessary or whatever, but taking in audience reactions will hopefully lend to a stronger, more clear vision of the season. I do think lack of progression was intentional on the part of the writers. They very much intended for this to be a snapshot and for this to just be showcasing a transitionary period for them. So I get that and I can appreciate that, but it doesn't fully land. I really needed more. I'm trying to be gracious, but like I would have liked to see Luca and Marcus. I'm sure we'll get to that in next season. I just feel like I'm like tired in this review even. I'm tired of saying, oh, you know, we'll get to that next season, I guess. They're probably gonna get to that. I'm like, well, maybe we should have gotten to it already. It feels a bit directionless. And man, when I said the show was mirroring the restaurant, I like did not mean for them to follow it this closely. This season was a little bit disappointing. It was kind of a letdown, but I'm not excited for next season. This is a bit of a lull, but we'll pick it back up. Especially now that I know they didn't even finish season 4, so we definitely have time to like recoup and come back to things. Give me an Ibra episode next season. That's my request. And more Sydney. I didn't get nearly enough Sydney in this season, and that's like actually criminal. this was my first video. How fun is that? This is one of my favorite shows, so I'm happy for this to be my first video. Leave me a comment and tell me what you thought about the season, what you thought could have been done better, what you actually liked about it, if you're frustrated with the lack of progress that was made, or if you think there was enough progress made. Let me know what you thought. And if you like this video, leave it a like. Consider subscribing. I will definitely be making more reviews. I love to talk about TV and movies, so if you want to hear some of that, follow me on Twitter and follow my Letterboxd and subscribe to me here, because I'm going to be making more videos. Let me know what you would want me to talk about. I'm Lazuli, and this has been Nixnash.